Okay, so let's get string s back over here and continue our discussion. So s can be null, but not every type can be null. Okay, only types that are of type classes or interface can be null, and let me show you what I mean. For example, if I'll use int I equals null, I will get an error saying that cannot convert null to int because it's a non-nullable value type. So int is what we call non-nullable value type. How can we distinguish? How can we know which types can be null and which types cannot? So the way to do that is to understand the type itself. We can actually right-click and go to definition. Now, when we go to definition of a string, we can see the definition of a string as a class. String is a class, and because it's a class, it can be null. As opposed to string, let's go and look at int. Go to let's just keep it here. Great, and let's go to definition of int. And we can see that int is a struct. Let's do a split screen so we can see the difference. So string is a class and int is a struct. Now a struct is an object, is a type in .NET that we're not really going to talk about in this training. If you want, you can read more about it. I've been developing in .NET for I think 11 or 12 years now, and don't remember using struct that often, so it's not worth training about. But we need to understand that anything that is a class can be null, and anything that is a struct cannot be null. So which types cannot be null that are quite common in the .NET world? Well, obviously int, also decimal, cannot be null. Datetime cannot be null. Okay, let's add using systems here so our code will be easier to read. So datetime cannot be null, and a lot of the basics raw types of .NET cannot be null. But anything that is a class, and most of the things that you'll be using when you're developing in code are classes, can be null. And another way to distinguish them is by the icon in the IntelliSense. We can see here that this is a class by this icon, okay, and actually by the word class over here. And if we park over int, we can see that it's a struct, and we can see this icon that indicates that it's a struct, so we know that it cannot be a null. Same goes for datetime. We can see that it's a struct, or even an enum. For example, the let's say using Firefly box and say sort direction. If you remember, we use sort direction in the order by to say ascending or descending. So sort direction is an enum, and enums have this icon to them, and they also cannot be null. Now we're talking about the exception, what cannot be null. Most of the things, 99% of the things that you do can be null. But the fact that datetime cannot be null or int cannot be null represent a challenge when you're developing a database application in where the database, it can very well be null. So this brings us to talking about Firefly types, which we'll do, or Firefly types or migrated types, which we'll do in the next video.